Hello everyone, hello ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching our show for once again. Uh, I have to admit that I have the show open as well and I can hear our own selves. Okay, now we're ready to start. I have a surprise for you. I should admit I have a surprise. Today in our studio we have Mr. Nikko Georgantzas. He's a friend of mine. I know him for a while. I know him for a long time. And I should admit that he's a charismatic person. He's a professor in Fordham University. He teaches system dynamics, if I say it correctly, right? He's also vice president of of IEND. IEND is an organization in Greece. He was also involved in the Greek community for a very long time. He was president of the motorcycles as well, right, Nikko?
Yeah,
Among many other things, actually, right?
Hermes, the Hellenic American Motorcycle Association of Greater New York.
Yeah, and I was vice president at some point on that club.
Yes, you served your term.
And do you still have this GS motorcycle, Nikko? I forgot to ask you in the Greek show.
Oh, yes.
You do, right?
I'm still the proud owner of a GS BMW.
Okay, so now the summer is coming. We have to, we have to go around a little bit, to have a little fun with that.
We have to play with it.
Okay, so Mr. Nikos Georgantzas is here today to talk to us about many things. As you know, our show is concerned about Hellenism. That happens. About Hellenism, about Greek culture, Hellenic ideas. And I should admit that Nikos is very well into that. Because he's not only a lover like many people are, they love the Hellenic idea, he also studied a lot. I should admit that. He studied a lot the Hellenic philosophers, he studied a lot, and he also combines the system dynamics that he teaches. He combines that with the Hellenic philosophy, the Hellenic science, the Hellenic ideas. And we can talk a lot about that. Also, Nikos is, as we said, part of IEND, an organization that is gaining more and more more attention in Greece. Many people follow this organization, and I have to admit that in this organization, the members of this organization, they do a great job in terms of enlightening people about Hellenism. I mean, they do their best. I heard Nikko many times in radio shows in Greece and in the island of Cyprus, which is considered to be, it is the same nation as the Greeks, but it's considered to be a different country. So he's doing shows in both places, and mostly radio, and that's maybe that's something important that we do here. That we have Nikko and we have him live. You can see him on camera, and this won't be the first time. I will demand of him to come again because we're gonna have many surprises for you guys. I also want to bring Laxon here, from the Kalas people. You know her, right?
I see.
Yeah, I mean, we can do things that the Hellenes will be very interested in. So, but let's see. Let's talk about Nikos first of all. Nikos, you studied Hellenism for many years, right?
Yes, I've been studying Hellenism all my life, being a Hellenic, of course, naturally.
Well, that's our fate, but you went a little deeper, right?
Well, it's because of my involvement with systems. This area of what is called system dynamics and systems thinking has led me to start exploring the beginning of human knowledge about systems. And looking at the etymology, the very word system comes from the Greek word synestime, which it has to do with standing together. And I started exploring the human knowledge about systems, and to my surprise, it's not that great. Even though we have now developed computer systems and high technology satellites and rockets that go to the moon and to Mars and other outside the solar system, it seems that we have very little understanding about systems as a species. It's fascinating how I believe the starting point of human knowledge about systems starts with the Ionian philosopher Heraclitus. And Heraclitus is the first man to have stated that everything flows. And this sounds very nice and dandy, and that's about all we know about systems. And that was probably about 500 BC, before the Common Era. And then we have, in 1958, we have another human being that comes to add something to our knowledge about systems. He agrees with Heraclitus in saying, and we're talking about systems that exhibit dynamic behaviors. And this man makes a very small observation that, yes, everything flows as Heraclitus says, but everything flows in the strict order of alternating between a flow and a stock. And this is the birth of system dynamics, that little observation of his. It's very easy to misunderstand the whole notion of dynamic systems because they are literally under our nose. When a person is born, it comes out of the birth canal and starts breathing. And unless they apply system dynamics, they cannot breathe and they die. Because every breath you take in, every inhalation of air, that's an inflow, which creates a stock of air in your lungs, where there's an exchange of good and bad substances.
A diffusion of...
Yes, but then you exhale, and that's another outflow. It's also, so you see, it's a flow in, a stock of air, a flow out. So this very strict alteration between an accumulation of a quantity and the flow of that quantity is the observation that gave rise to this whole area of system thinking and system dynamics.
I'm great for the fact that Nikko, you combine. We started by combination. I mean, you just described pretty much what your subject is, what you work with, yes, which is system dynamics, and you described it by combining it with the ancient Greek philosophy, and especially with Heraclitus and what he said. And
but what part of civilization is not Hellenic civilization?
Well, that's a good question.
I have yet to discover
yes,
the functioning, well-functioning aspects of Western civilization that can all be attributed to something to do with the Greek thinking of the classical Hellas. You see, most people are interested in ancient of the people.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was part of the whole thing. And also, the king was not in the back eating grapes while the people were fighting, you know, and having fun with chicks and and watching the people fighting. He was more like in the first line. In the first line, he was the first that could have been killed. And he had been injured many times. So I would say that it's a different kind of monarchy. It's not the monarchy that we are used to with the Eastern or the Oriental cultures. And I think we still have the Greek element. I personally am more Hellenist because I'm Macedonian also, and I have this, you know, like this mentality of the Macedons. But if we think about, let's say, in Alexandria, the great engineers that we had over there, like Chiron, the Alexandrevs, with a mechanism of anti-Kythera, with the computer they made, and the whole what came out of that era, I think is astonishing. But I understand that there had been some problematic times, unfortunately, and some deterioration. But still, there was this Greek imperialistic, perhaps.
You're close in respect to the Macedonian issue. Alexander the Great, in the context in which I do my research and I study societal systems, because all business professors, that's what we do, we're social scientists, and we study these societal systems. The greatest respect I have for Alexander the Great comes from the fact that although he, in a way, conquered the Hellenic polities, the polis, he never tampered with their political systems, because he actually was taught by Aristotle. And even though Aristotle had a professor, his teacher was Plato, who was perhaps the ideologist of dynastic regimes, what we call...
I hope Timoleon is not hearing right now.
Yeah.
He's Platonic, 100%.
He sets the theoretical foundation, Plato, unfortunately, of the dynastic regime of authority, authoritarian regime, which Alexander the Great did not impose on any of the Hellenic polities. But unfortunately, at the end, after the death of Alexander the Great, which is in 323 before the Common Era, we see that immediately the year of his death starts a very obscure war in Greece. And this was named the Lamian War because it took place around the city of what is today Lamia. And at the very
that
end...
is, by the way, that is in central Greece, a little north of Athens.
Yeah, it's
north of Athens, but not too far from Athens. It's like 100 kilometers from Athens, I would say. Something like that.
Yeah, it's further than Thebes, but not too far.
Yeah.
So the whole idea was that at the very end of this war, Athens was actually pushed into this war. And they knew they were going to lose this war because the Macedonians were very powerful at the time. But they were the people, the citizens of by the fans of the what is called swanki regime in English slang, which means the aristocratic regime from the French War II, marks the time when not just the political system of democracy is dismantled, but the whole the whole concept of a Hellenic politia goes down the drain with it, because a politia can only be supported by an authentic political system, a real political system based on the definition of what is the system on the one hand and what is a regime or regime, the swanky regime as we call it, on the other hand. And this is the kind of awareness we try to establish with our organization in the end, where it's an acronym. The word END stands for End National Debt. And of course, being Hellenes, we primarily care for freeing our countries of our Hellenic nation, which include the country of Hellas and the country of Cyprus. We have two so far. Maybe in the future we're going to have more. We don't have to be limited to two.
Yes, absolutely.
But we'll see about that. I don't have any immediate plans to conquer any nation. We've never done that as Hellenes. It's not in our history. We would look forward, though, to a harmonious coexistence from a male to be exactly the same as a Chinese female. First of all, one is a man, the other is a woman, and there must be some beautiful differences between one sex and the other, Otherwise, why would we be attracted to each other?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a very natural phenomenon to be attracted to beautiful, especially beautiful people. So, and by beautiful, I don't just mean the curves of their body, but I also mean their spirit, primarily their human spirit, and the inner beauty, as Socrates used to say and pray to the deities at the time, to give him inner beauty. So the preservation of our cultural differences, while we try to understand one culturally and with the other culture, this creates a beautiful synthesis of the human civilization, of the human species on the planet. Unfortunately, there are some people there, and these people try to understand their subject matter. There are, of course, people who deal with information systems, and they appreciate the Hellenic civilization because the computers that we use are simply an implementation of the Greek triactis, which is the grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which in computers translates into input, logic, output. And of course, if you have garbage in, garbage out, unless you control all these parts, and this in the Greek education, pedia, as we call it, in the classical Hellas, was called the triactis. And this triactis became the so-called trivium in the Roman Empire. And then the high level of education, civilization, was called tetractis, which so triactis was the three parts were grammar, the logic, Aristotelian logic, kind of logic, and rhetoric, and these were the three parts of education the Greek children, both boys and girls, were supposed to receive before the age of 13 or 15. And then for those who wanted to educate themselves further, there was the tetractis, which involved people becoming educated and well-versed in arithmetic, in geometry, in astronomy, and in music. So these were the triactis in the young age, and this was, excuse me, in the Roman times, the tetractis was called the quadrivium. And this was the whole education system, which we find aspects of it even in today's world of education. So the Hellenic civilization has contributed from the classical Hellas a codified knowledge and classified knowledge in certain ways, which still affect the way education is received worldwide. But what I respect about Alexander the Great is that he respected all this civilization, and he did not intervene because he realized that this civilization would not have come to be in most part of the history. It's been very bad for humanity. The only era where the swanki regime was really beneficial for the people is the time of the Antonine dynasty in the Roman Empire, because these were enlightened tyrants, emperors, the Antonines. There were four.
Marcus Aurelius, right?
The last one being Marcus Aurelius, and that was a period where humanity really was making good progress and living in a relative eudaimonia or bliss. But of course, you see what happens with the swanki regime is that the person on the top can make it or break it. And immediately after the death of Marcus Aurelius came his natural son, Commodus, which was maybe the biggest bloody bastard ever to rule in the swanki regime. And now, of course, we have other examples of very ruthless leaders, for example, like Henry VIII. And of course, then we have the Elizabethan times where Elizabeth was a very, very charismatic and very given to the cause, very driven to the let's say the glory of her nation, very patriotic, and tried to do things to help the British Empire grow and prosper. And those were prosperous years. So it's possible in the swanky regime to have a charismatic leader, an enlightened leader, a humanitarian leader that will really care for his or her people. And it's good that we have examples both with men and the women, right? But what happens when that bloody bastard comes in the picture, like Commodus and a ruthless Henry VIII, and then there is no way to retract this damage done to humanity and the human species.
Yes.
I mean, when people start burning other people on fire alive and chopping their fingers off and torturing them and using even psychological violence and all that, those despicable acts of violence against fellow human beings are unforgivable, but of course they do happen under the swanky regime. So it seems that the human species has given this swanky regime 2,336 years to prove itself, and so far it seems to be failing royally or grossly, as we say. So
yes.
Perhaps it's time that the 7 billion people around the planet can have to be united in explaining to the swanky regime that, listen, dear swanky regime, we gave you 2,336 years of reign, and you really screwed us up. So maybe it's about time to render you, to help you realize that you're really very parasitic and you're really useless to us. And perhaps we should, the 7 billion people of the planet, of course, every nation for itself in the beginning, we have to create the awareness and elevate the critical thinking of human beings so they can, first of all, realize that they live under the occupation of the swanky regime for 2,336 years. And then you don't even have to fight this regime. I mean, we're not promoting any violence or anything, just creating awareness among people, helping them realize that all you have to do is render the swanky regime obsolete and find alternative ways to organize our societies for a more productive way so that people can live in eudaimonia and affluence and good and value systems from the classical Hellas. This whole ethics, system of ethics was developed so well during the Hellenic era that it seems it's very difficult for the professors of ethics of today to match any of this beautiful mathematical structure of ethics that the Hellenic civilization has created. We have the superb ideals that have not changed through the centuries. Arete of the good is the same. Aesthetics has not really made much progress. Actually, we very little understand aesthetics today. We very little understand.
Well, that's and that can be. I mean that's also relative to the conversation I had with Timor Leon and about you talk about aesthetics and our and how aesthetics are today, and we're talking about the art, you know, in the museum, the MoMA museum.
Lack of aesthetics, you mean?
Yeah, lack of aesthetics. I mean, you go to MoMA, and I went there with some kids to take them around. The skeleton on top of her, and she was like that, like a statue over there, and some crazy things. And she was like that for hours and hours, not even moving her eyes. So it was crazy. Anyway, and I don't consider that art, and I also said that I don't consider art or something, you know, and I'm sure she got a lot of money to do that. Otherwise, why would somebody do such a thing?
Well, it's... so you feel that this lack of...
For example, I see some paints thrown on a wall, and they say they give you a nice feeling. I don't care about the nice feeling. I can get nice feeling in other ways. I mean, what I want to see in a piece of art is harmony, ratios, mathematical ratios, things like that. I mean, this is what really transforms you. This is what works in your inner self, rather than just some paints. I mean, even a child can do that, and why should we call that art and don't call it just?
Well, a very bumper sticker definition of art.
Yeah.
Within the context of aesthetics that the classical Hellenists developed.
I mean,
we can interpret art as being the education of our enthusiasm. So the harnessing of the human enthusiasm is what some people perceive art to be. But when we fail to harness our enthusiasm, then we just splash paint on the wall. And the subsequent modern religions, for example, Christianity, have adopted lock, stock, and barrel. But of course, they won't admit it. They say it comes from somewhere else. But the fact is that when there were the synods of the new modern religions were establishing their doctrines,
the ecumenic one,
dogmas,
yeah.
Yes, what they were really doing, for example, they would take whole paragraphs of Plato, and then they would substitute two in them. The word eros, which is actually the passion for perfection, for the perfection, and they would substitute the word love, which so degrading the level of human passion which you have to harness in an aesthetic way down to a temporal feeling can easily be exchanged for hate. So love can very easily be transformed into hate because whatever we do it has to be compatible with nature. And the basic premise is that nature seems to have a purposefulness. And the purposefulness of nature, we assume it is the elevation of human consciousness through human spirit. So now, here we come in the 21st century and we try to degrade the human being down to a level of living out of feeling and out of only instinct instead of relying on the logic of a quadrivium and trivium. That way, we're doing something which is against nature. We're denying the usefulness of nature, which has to do with elevating consciousness. The problem is that nature is a very patient creature, meaning the whole universe. Καλά πάει.
Ναι, λοιπόν, συνεχίζουμε.
In English.
Oh yeah. Okay, we'll continue.
Shows. So it's a show time.
Yeah, but I'm glad you're still standing today because you had a lot of things to do. I also did some shows today. I did with Timo Leon, 2 shows. We did the Greek show together. We are doing the English right now. And Nikko, for those who, I mean, your show is in Greek, right? The one that you do on
the radio show. Every Saturday I have a steady radio show. Today I think was the 4th, if I'm not mistaken, with the Cypriot radio station. It's called Art FM Cyprus.
Yes.
And we have multiple other internet kind of radio stations that plug onto it. So we cover simultaneously the whole planet, creating this awareness about the greatness of the Hellenic civilization. You see, the Hellenic politeia was elevated to the point of being a very organically structured real system, where all the parts work simultaneously together for the common good of the system, which is the formal definition which has not changed from the time of Aristotle to our modern times. And then we have the beauty of this is that as Timoleon said in the previous show, the Aryan structure, and they created some kind of a spherical system where for every person who is of a group of people, simultaneously or concurrently, these people collectively are in charge of that person, of that
structure, some other institutions, and the one institution is controlling the other institution.
The collective of the people controls their leader.
Yes, exactly. It's not that the leader controls the people, it's the people who control the leader at the same time. So it's more like, right? It's more like give and take. But, of course, yeah, I mean...
It's called harmony.
Harmony, yeah.
It's that very peculiar beauty.
In other words...
We have no plan to impose this on humanity, but I believe that all one having two parties, which is called the Democrats and Republicans, and the title of a count, which makes me the father of accounts. Okay. So, but these titles are really historical relics, and they're just for fun. I mean, nobody takes them seriously anymore. And the same way we don't take those titles seriously, we should not take the swanky regime seriously. So there will be a time when people say, "What, are you a Republican? Why are you nuts? What are you talking about?" And they just walk away. And then historically, people will look back at these political parties, and maybe 200 years from now, and say, "What was this? What was this all about? What were people trying to accomplish there? Why they were pretending to be different? You know, when they were all the same. I mean, they were all the same." And they're all employees of the same swanky regime.
Well, I think the Tea Party, how is it called? Tea Party or something like that, it's kind of different, but all the rest.
Well,
I mean,
if they define themselves as a party, that they aspire to become part of the swanky regime. So it's a matter of to do that without having to worry about the daily bread. And this is the same way it happened in classical Hellas, when, for example, Solon did the Sisachtia process, where it alleviated people from all their debt. And that's why the name of our organization is called End National Debt. So that's the first thing.
So Sisachtia is pretty much...
It's what we offer, yeah. we try to help establish Sisachtia by offering certain financial instruments. And these instruments can, which that, well, you have your 2000 Hellas, which does not exist on the surface of planet Earth any longer. It's a way to carry out the value systems through the society. Now, what are the two things that some people may say, oh, but this sounds kind of a left, reach a level where the real estate tax, which is a carryover from feudalism, against which had real ownership. And according to right now itself, the whole idea is that the society...
One Stathak as well. So, we have a lot of things to say, and Nikos is here. He lives in Astoria. He's